So speaking of wealth, there's a story about a wealthy family. It was quite some time ago, a wealthy farmer. You know, not just a dirt farmer, not just a guy with a nice barn. He had a beautiful barn, and he had huge tracts of land. And a house, a huge house, a house with 161 rooms. I don't know anybody that rich. I know some rich people. I don't know anybody with 161 rooms. Now this farmer, quite wealthy as he was a widower, but he did have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. And they were quite happy. Of course, they lived in the house because there's 161 rooms. I mean, the servants can only take up so much space. There's room for them and everybody else. You got the kitchen, the second kitchen. Well, eventually, as this happened, a farmer got old and he knew that it was almost his time to pass. And he had all this huge estate and all this stuff to leave to his children. And his children were very happy. They thought, oh, we're just going to live here forever and ever. That's fine. Well, the father did eventually pass, and the children were very sad and heartbroken. And then the lawyer came. Oh, yes, the lawyer. He called the children together in the great hall of the house, or one of the halls of the house. There's another room over there. And who knows how many places they could have met in there. But the lawyer, he called the children, and he said, your father has decided that one of you shall inherit the bulk of his property, the bulk of his wealth. The other 2 will be taken care of for sure, but one child is going to get a lot. He says, ooh, all right, who could it be? And the oldest brother goes, well, it's got to be me. I'm first, right? The middle brother says, I'm the smartest one. I'm the smartest one of the 3. I handle it best. And the daughter, she said, well, what happens. I'm just having a good time. And she was I wouldn't say a good time girl, but she enjoyed having a good time. She enjoyed dancing. She enjoyed parties. She enjoyed hikes in the woods. She enjoyed all manner of things. That was what she liked to do, just have a good time. Well, the lawyer, he said to the 3 children, the person who owns the bulk, who win the bulk of the property and the bulk of the wealth, will be the one who can fill the entire house. And like, what do you mean, fill the entire house? The father has left for each of you a pound, a single English pound. Now, in those days, if you're a teacher, that's like 3 months' salary. It's a lot of money. So each of you has a pound, and each of you is tasked with filling the entire house. 161 rooms, places for the servants and places for everything. If you can fill the entire house, then the bulk of the wealth will be yours. Well, the oldest brother, he started first. Big guy, not the brightest guy, nice guy. He took his pound and he went out into the world and he thought, what in the world can fill an entire house with a pound? And kind of like maybe in his head is kind of feathery. So he was kind of thinking, feathery. Feathers would do it. I could fill the whole house with feathers. So he took his pound and he went to the town and he bought every bed he could find. He bought every pillow he could find. He still had money left over. He went to the next, well, he spent 2 weeks traveling from town to town, you could get a mattress for just a half a shilling. You could get a lot for a pound. Buying all the pillows and all the mattresses he could find, and he hauled all big stacks of pillows and big piles of mattresses, and he brought them into the house, and he'd pull out his knife, and he slit one open in one room, and he waited, and all the feathers just flew up, and the room was filled. He took another pillow to the next room, filled it all up. All day long, he went from each room to pulling a mattress, tearing it open, kicking the feathers on out. The room was full with feathers. Down the next room, kicking the feathers out. 161 rooms. This took him an awful long time. And the attorney is there, because the attorney has to make sure he knows who's the kid who's going to get the golden ticket. So this oldest son, he goes room after room after room, day takes 2-3 days to go 161 rooms and tear up and throw the feathers and everything. And the lawyer walked up to the first room, he threw the feathers in. And I don't know if you've ever been in a room full of feathers, they settle. So by the time the lawyer was coming up to the first room, where the feathers had been piled high to the ceiling, just go, had all kind of settled down. That room's not filled, and that room's, no, it was a good try, but no, the room is not filled. The feathers, there's still all that space in there. You obviously didn't meet the task. Did not meet the task. Now, the house is full of feathers. It took the poor servants another 2 weeks just to clear all the feathers out of the house. But while their feathers were being cleared out of the house, the second brother, the one who thought he was the smartest one, the brightest one, and he thought, fill the entire house. You know what fills an entire room? Light. Light fills an entire room. So he thought, candles. So this young man, the middle brother, who thought he was the brightest one, he went from all through town. He bought up every candle he could find. He bought up every matchstick he could find. He thought, I've got like 50, 60, I have to go. He moved to the next town and bought every candle he could find and every matchstick he could lay his hands on. So by the time he got back home and the feathers had all been cleared out, which is a good thing because that would be a hazard. Fire and feathers, that would have been really bad. So the middle brother, he carries his case of candles and he goes up to the first room, sets up the candle. Yep, it's lighting up the room. All the corners, there's light everywhere. Perfect. He went to the next room, pulled out another candle. And the next room, there's 161 rooms. So he's lighting the next one, and the next one. Now, it takes less time to light a candle, obviously, than it does to tear open a bunch of pillows and stuff. But still, it took him over a day just to go from room to room to room, lighting candles, lighting candles, lighting candles. And the attorney, following along to make sure the father's wishes were met, went to the first room, and by that time, the candle was out. Well, this room is dark. Oh, and so is that you haven't filled the room with anything. These candles are dying. Obviously, you aren't going to get the bulk of your father's wealth. You can't even fill a room with a pound. Now, the youngest, the daughter who enjoyed life, enjoyed having a good time, she took her pound and she thought, what do I really like? We're going to fill the whole room because I'm filled with joy all the time. What can we do to fill that entire room? And she thought one of the things she enjoys at parties an awful lot is music. So with her pound, she brought a penny whistle. Still got to keep most of the money. All she bought was one penny whistle. The brothers had spent an entire pound and hauled mattresses and pillows across the countryside, spent an entire pound to find matches and candles all across the countryside, and all she had was this little penny whistle. So the attorney was there, and she said, is it my turn? So obviously, your older brothers didn't meet the criteria to inherit all the wealth. What have you got? She thought, I have this. Oh, yeah, she played better. Anyway, as she played. The attorney went from room to room. He went to the first room where there was a burnt out candle still sitting there. And he could hear up in that corner of the room. And then he went down to the servants' quarters and the servants were dancing to the music. And he went from room to room, and in every single room he could hear. He could hear that penny whistle playing. And the attorney came down after circling the entire house. He came back and said, I could hear that music in every single room. They were making the servants and everyone who could hear happy. You filled the rooms with not only music, but with joy. So you shall inherit the bulk of your father's estate. Just from the music and the joy that spreads everywhere.